she stood there, the echo of the slap still burning on her cheek, 200 students frozen in stunned silence. No one knew that the girl they thought was weak had been training for this moment her entire life, and what she did next didn't just change the bullies, it changed the entire school forever. Before I tell you how she turned humiliation into a victory that shocked the whole town, make sure you subscribe or follow for more unbelievable true-style stories that start with injustice and end with the kind of revenge you'll never forget. The slap echoed through the courtyard like a gunshot, sharp and shocking, freezing the air as 200 students watched in disbelief, some with phones already recording, others too stunned to even blink, and in the very center of it all stood Emily Carter, the quiet girl everyone thought was too soft to fight back, her cheek burning red where Vanessa King, the school's most feared bully, had just struck her with a smirk that said she believed she had already won, because that was the thing about bullies, they didn't just want to hurt you, they wanted to make sure everyone else saw it, felt it, remembered it, and Vanessa had chosen the perfect moment, lunch break, the whole school gathered, the perfect stage for humiliation, and for years, Emily had taken it, the mocking, the rumors, the shoves, the whispered laughter when she walked by, all because she was the daughter of a single mother, all because she didn't dress in expensive clothes or belong to the right circle, all because she was too polite, too quiet, too invisible, but what they didn't know, what no one knew, was that every time Emily walked away instead of fighting, every time she hid her tears, every time she forced herself to breathe through the pain, she wasn't breaking, she was learning, because her mother had taught her one thing when life tore their family apart. The world will try to destroy you in public, but your strength grows in silence, and when it's time, strength doesn't need to scream, it simply arrives, and that day, in that courtyard, Emily finally felt it rising, not as anger, not as fear, but as something heavier, something deeper, something that had been waiting inside her for years, a storm disguised as a girl, and yet, even with a slap so loud the birds flew off the trees, Emily didn't flinch, didn't cry, didn't even lift a trembling hand to her cheek, and that unnerved Vanessa more than if Emily had screamed, because bullies understand only two reactions, fear or fight, and Emily gave her neither, just silence, and silence to a bully is not weakness, it is the warning of something they can't predict, but Vanessa laughed anyway, tossing her perfect hair, fully assured of her audience, because she was the queen of the school, the principal's niece, the captain of the cheer team, the girl with everything, money, followers, status, and Emily had nothing except what no one could see yet, and as the phones continued recording, Vanessa said the line she had prepared, the one she wanted to go viral. This is what happens to nobodies who think they matter, and the crowd reacted the way crowds always do, half uncomfortable, half entertained, but none willing to step in because being a bystander feels safer than being a target, and Emily, even then, didn't speak, didn't fight back, didn't run, but inside her, memories surged like trapped electricity, the night she found her mother crying because they couldn't pay rent, the day the police knocked to say her father wasn't coming home again, the 3 years she spent training in a community self-defense center her uncle forced her to attend because he said one day the world will corner you and you better know how to get out, and even after all that, she had chosen peace. Always peace, because she didn't want to become what hurt her, but something changed in that courtyard, something irreversible, and Vanessa, too blinded by arrogance to notice, pushed harder, literally shoving Emily's shoulder, demanding she react, calling her weak, useless, worthless, and that word, worthless, was the one that finally snapped the invisible thread holding everything in place, because Emily had heard it her whole life, whispered in classrooms, spoken by strangers, implied in every pitying look, and now, in front of 200 witnesses, it was spoken again, but this time it didn't land like a wound, it detonated like truth turning into fire, and Emily looked up, really looked up, for the first time meeting Vanessa's eyes without fear, without apology, and the whole courtyard felt the shift, the atmosphere tightening like the seconds before lightning, but Vanessa, desperate for attention, dramatic as always, raised her hand again, ready to slap Emily a second time, harder, for the cameras, but before her hand could even finish its arc, Emily's fingers moved, not shaking, not unsure, but with precision, with training, with frightening calm, because she didn't block the strike, she caught it midair, fingers tightening just enough to stop the motion, not hurt, just stop, and the entire courtyard gasped, not because Emily acted, but because she acted as if she had been waiting for this moment, like this wasn't reaction, it was response, planned, controlled, inevitable, and Vanessa's smile cracked, her confidence splintering, because Emily didn't push her, didn't yell, didn't fight back, she just held her wrist in a grip so steady it felt wrong, unnatural, and for the first time, Vanessa felt something she had never felt before. The loss of power, and Emily leaned in, low enough that only Vanessa heard the words, but her voice was steady like a calm sea before a tidal wave, and Vanessa's eyes widened, not in pain, but in realization, because the girl she thought was breakable was not breakable at all, and before Vanessa could pull away, before anyone in the crowd processed what was happening, Emily released her wrist, stepped back, and said nothing, which made the scene even more unbearable, because silence in the face of humiliation is not defeat, it is judgment, and the crowd felt it, the shift, the awareness that maybe they had been cheering for the wrong person all along, and that is when the assistant principal walked in, saw the scene, saw Vanessa clutching her wrist and Emily standing still, and like every adult who believes the loudest is the victim, he immediately demanded Emily come with him, ignoring the phones, ignoring the witnesses, ignoring the obvious, and as Emily was escorted away, the crowd didn't cheer, didn't mock, there was only tension, the kind that meant something big was coming, something no one would see coming, not even Emily, because as she walked to the office, she didn't know that the video was already spreading, already gaining comments, already shifting public opinion, because in less than an hour, Emily Carter, the quiet girl no one defended, would become the center of a storm so big it would not only expose Vanessa, not only expose the school, but expose a truth buried for years, one tied to Emily's father, to the school board, to secrets the King family protected, secrets that were about to collapse because of one slap, one video, one girl who refused to break, and as she sat in the office, waiting for punishment she didn't deserve, the door opened, and the last person she expected walked in, someone who would change everything, someone who said 9 words that made her realize the slap was not the end, it was the beginning, and those 9 words were, you don't have to stay silent anymore. Emily turned and saw not a teacher, not a student, not a police officer, but a woman in her early 40s with sharp eyes and a calm presence, someone she had never seen before but who somehow looked like she already knew everything. And before Emily could even speak, the woman introduced herself as Detective Rowan and said she wasn't there about the slap, she was there because of something much bigger, something connected to Emily's father, a man she had spent years believing died in an accident, a story her mother never questioned because grief was heavy enough without doubt, but now doubt flooded everything because the detective told her the truth in seconds, the truth no one in that school was ready for. Your father didn't die in an accident, he was silenced, and the person who helped cover it up is related to Vanessa King. The room spun like a carousel, the floor felt unreal, the walls too close. Suddenly the slap in the courtyard was no longer about bullying, it was the thread that pulled the entire curtain down, because Vanessa's father was not just a wealthy businessman, he was the vice president of the school board, and more than that, he had financial ties with companies under investigation for fraud, and Emily's father, a quiet accountant, had discovered it and tried to expose it 10 years ago, back when Emily was just a child, and before he could go public he disappeared with an official cause of death labeled accident. But Detective Rowan showed Emily proof, evidence, files, reports, and the missing pieces fell together like puzzle pieces that had been waiting years to be seen. And before Emily could breathe, Vanessa's voice echoed outside the office, yelling, crying, demanding her uncle, the principal, fix this, because she could already see online the video was going viral, and for the first time in her life people were not laughing with her, they were laughing at her. The bully was becoming the exposed one, and justice was finally switching direction. But Detective Rowan wasn't done. She told Emily something else, something heavier. The investigation had stalled for years due to school board interference, but now thanks to the viral video the media wanted answers, and the case could be reopened if Emily wanted to testify, not just about the slap but everything she'd endured, all the harassment, all the cover-ups, all the decisions made to protect the powerful instead of the innocent. But Emily hesitated, not because she was afraid but because she understood the weight of choosing to speak. The world she knew was small, but the world this truth would reach was huge, and in that moment she finally understood the reason her mother always said silence can be strength, but silence can also be a cage, and Emily was done living in cages. The detective gave her 24 hours to decide, and as Emily walked out of the office she saw the courtyard again, but it wasn't the same courtyard, it wasn't the same school, it wasn't the same life. The crowd wasn't whispering about her now, they were staring at Vanessa, who was alone, no cheer squad, no fake friends, no spotlight, just a girl who wasn't untouchable anymore, because the truth doesn't need fists, it needs exposure. Emily walked past her, and for the first time Vanessa didn't speak, she didn't insult, she didn't push, she just stared, a broken stare that comes only when someone realizes the world no longer fears them. And Emily didn't gloat, didn't smirk, didn't feel victory, only clarity. Bullies aren't strong, they are protected. Once protection is gone they collapse under the weight of their own cruelty. Emily went home and told her mother everything, and her mother cried, not from sadness but from finally knowing her husband wasn't weak or careless, he was brave, he was silenced for doing the right thing, and now his daughter had the chance to finish what he started. The next morning Emily walked into the police station not as a victim, not as a weak girl, but as a witness, a fighter, a survivor, and when she signed the statement she felt something in her chest she hadn't felt in years. Freedom, because fighting back isn't always about hitting harder, sometimes it is about speaking when they expect you to stay quiet. And as the investigation exploded on the news, the truth spread faster than any rumor. Vanessa's father was arrested, the principal resigned, the school board collapsed, and every student who watched that slap replayed online understood something new. Cruelty is loud, but justice is louder. Vanessa was expelled not because of the slap but because the investigation uncovered years of protected bullying, complaints covered up by staff scared to lose funding, and the girl who once owned the hallways now walked them with no one to follow her. And Emily didn't need revenge, she didn't need to humiliate Vanessa. The world handled that for her. What she needed, she already had her voice back, and something more powerful than revenge. Peace. Months later, on the anniversary of her father's death, Emily stood at his grave with her mother, and for the first time the tears she cried weren't from pain but completion. She whispered, "I finished it, Dad," and in the quiet wind she felt like he heard her. Years of weight lifted off her shoulders, and she walked away not as the girl who got slapped but as the girl who changed everything, not just for herself but for every quiet kid who ever thought they had no power. Because the truth is, sometimes the strongest person in the room is the one who doesn't fight first but fights right. And the video didn't just make Emily known, it made her a symbol. Schools across the country started sharing it long after the scandal was over, not as drama but as a lesson. The slap wasn't the story, her response was. The slap was cruelty, but her answer was justice. And every student who once recorded to laugh now shared to inspire. Emily Carter, the girl they once ignored, became the girl no one forgot, and in the end she realized something astonishing. Life didn't change because she hit back, life changed because she finally stopped letting other people write her story and started writing her own. The girl who was slapped became the girl who stood up, and the world stood up with her.